Sophia pressed her palm against her swelling cheek, tasting copper on her tongue. The slap had come so fast she hadn't seen it coming, just like everything else with Derek. 3 years of marriage, and she'd spent the last 6 months discovering who he really was. The gambling, the drinking, the women, and now this. "You think you can just leave?" Derek's voice cut through the sound of rain hammering against her car. He'd followed her out here, rage making his movements jerky and unpredictable. "After everything I've given you?" Everything he'd given her. Sophia almost laughed, but her face hurt too much. He'd given her a foreclosed house, maxed out credit cards in her name, and a collection of excuses that would fill a library. What he'd taken was so much more. Her savings, her confidence, her ability to sleep through the night without wondering what fresh disaster morning would bring. "Just let me go, Derek." Her keys were somewhere in her purse, but her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't find them. The divorce papers had been served that morning. She'd thought doing it through a lawyer would keep things civilized. She'd been wrong about that, too. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You don't get to decide when this is over. I do. Let her go." The voice came from behind Derek, low, calm, and carrying the kind of authority that made grown men reconsider their choices. Sophia looked up to see a man standing in the rain like he owned the weather itself. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. He hadn't raised his voice, but Derek's grip loosened anyway. "This is between me and my wife," Derek said, but there was uncertainty creeping into his bluster now. "Ex-wife," Sophia managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "The papers were served this morning." The stranger's eyes moved to her face, cataloging the damage with a single glance that made her feel simultaneously exposed and protected. Something flickered across his expression, something cold and final. "You're bleeding," he said to her, as if Derek had ceased to exist entirely. She touched her lip where Derek's ring had split the skin. "I'm fine." "No." He moved forward and Derek actually stumbled backward. "You're not." That's when 3 more men materialized from the shadows near a black SUV Sophia hadn't noticed before. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. Derek's face went pale. "This isn't your business," Derek tried one more time, but his voice had lost all its conviction. The stranger finally looked at him, really looked at him, and Sophia felt the temperature drop. "I'm making it my business. Leave. If I see you near her again, you won't like what happens next." Derek wanted to argue. She could see it in the set of his jaw, but survival instinct won out. He backed toward his truck, trying to salvage some dignity. "This isn't over, Sophia." "Yes," the stranger said quietly. "It is." They watched Derek drive away, his taillights disappearing into the rain. Sophia's adrenaline was starting to crash, her legs going weak. The stranger's hand caught her elbow, steadying her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what would have happened if... Let's get you out of this rain." His voice was gentler now, though something hard still lingered beneath it. "There's a cafe 2 blocks from here. We should check that lip. I don't even know your name." He smiled then, and it transformed his entire face. Luca Moretti. She should have recognized the name. Everyone in the city knew about the Morettis, the family that ran half the businesses downtown, the ones the police couldn't seem to touch, the ones people spoke about in whispers. But standing there in the rain with her face throbbing and her marriage finally over, all she could think was that Luca Moretti had kind eyes. "Sophia," she said. "Sophia Walsh." "Well, Sophia Walsh, let's get you somewhere warm." The cafe was nearly empty, just a tired waitress wiping down tables, and a cook visible through the kitchen window. Luca guided her to a corner booth and returned moments later with a first aid kit that the waitress had produced without question. People seemed to do what he asked without question. "May I?" He gestured to her face. She nodded, and his touch was surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the cut on her lip with antiseptic. This close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, He had to be in his early 40s, maybe a few years older than her own 38. "This isn't the first time he's hit you." It wasn't a question. Sophia looked away. "No, but it's the last." "The divorce? Is it final?" 60 days, California law. She laughed bitterly. 60 more days of looking over my shoulder, wondering if he'll show up drunk at my apartment or drain what's left of our joint account. Luca's jaw tightened. "Tell me his full name." "Why?" "Because men like that don't stop unless someone makes them stop." He finished bandaging her lip and sat back, his dark eyes holding hers. "Derek what?" "Castellano. Derek Castellano." She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup the waitress had brought. "But please, I don't want any trouble. I just want this to be over." "It will be." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then set it aside. "Tell me about him. His family, his work, where he spends his time." And maybe it was the kindness in his voice, or the exhaustion from months of holding everything together, or the simple fact that someone was finally asking what she needed. But Sophia started talking. She told him about Derek's father, Anthony Castellano, who owned a chain of car dealerships and thought his money made him untouchable. About Derek's 2 brothers who worked for their father and treated employees like servants. About the gambling debts Derek had racked up at casinos from here to Vegas, always promising this would be the last time, always lying. She told him about the night she'd found texts from 3 different women on Derek's phone, about the mortgage payments he'd forgotten to make while spending thousands on poker games, about the time he'd shoved her into a wall during an argument, and then bought her flowers the next day, like that made it okay. Luca listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every detail. When she finally fell silent, he reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "You deserve better than that," he said simply. "I know. That's why I filed for divorce." "No." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture almost absent, like he wasn't aware he was doing it. "You deserve someone who would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt you." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. "That's very dramatic." "I'm a dramatic man." He smiled slightly. "Where are you staying tonight?" "I have an apartment on 5th Street. Small, but it's mine. The lease is in my name only." "Does he have a key?" The question sent ice down her spine. "He might have made a copy before I moved out." Luca pulled out his phone again, made a call. "Marco, I need someone at Sophia Walsh's apartment on 5th Street. Now, full security detail." He listened for a moment, his eyes never leaving her face. "Because I said so. And Marco, if Derek Castellano or anyone from his family shows up, call me immediately." He ended the call and saw her expression. "You'll be safe tonight, I promise." "I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." He leaned forward. "Sophia, I need you to understand something. What I saw in that parking lot tonight, that's not something I can just walk away from. And truthfully, I don't want to." Her heart was beating too fast. "I don't understand. You don't even know me." "Not yet." The way he said it made it sound like a promise. "But I'd like to. If you'll let me." This was crazy. Luca Moretti was, well, she didn't know exactly what he was, but the rumors were enough. Dangerous, powerful, connected to things that happened in shadows and back rooms. Everything logical told her to thank him politely and walk away. But when was the last time logic had protected her? When had playing it safe and being the good girl ever gotten her anything but a split lip and an empty bank account? "I'd like that too," she heard herself say. His smile was like sunrise. "Good. Now let's get you home." The building on 5th Street was nothing special, a converted warehouse divided into loft apartments that were trendy in a bohemian kind of way. Sophia had chosen it because Derek hated it, which now seemed like the best reason in the world. As Luca's SUV pulled up, she saw 2 men already stationed near the entrance. "That was fast," she murmured. "I have efficient people." He walked her to the door, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. The gesture felt protective rather than possessive, but there was something in the way he positioned himself between her and the street that told her he was very aware of their surroundings. At her door, she fumbled with her keys again. "Thank you, Luca, for everything. This is my direct number." He handed her a business card with nothing but a phone number embossed in black. "If Derek contacts you, if anything makes you uncomfortable, if you need anything at all, you call me. Anytime, day or night." She took the card, their fingers brushing. "I will." He hesitated, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he lifted her hand to his lips, the old-fashioned gesture somehow more intimate than anything else. "Sleep well, Sophia. You're safe now." She watched from her window as he returned to the SUV, watched until the taillights disappeared down the street. Only then did she notice her phone had 4 missed calls from Derek and twice as many texts, each one angrier than the last. She blocked the number and went to bed. Morning brought sunshine and a strange sense of lightness Sophia hadn't felt in years. She made coffee, checked that the locks were still secure, and tried not to think about Luca Moretti's hands carefully cleaning her wounds, or the way his voice had dropped when he'd said she deserved better. Her phone rang at 10. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Sophia, it's Luca." Just hearing his voice made her smile. "Hi, how did you sleep?" "Better knowing you were safe." There was background noise, voices, the sound of traffic. "Listen, I know this is forward, but I'd like to take you to lunch, if you're free." "I'm free. 1 o'clock, I'll pick you up." She spent the next 3 hours in a state of nervous excitement she hadn't experienced since high school. What did you wear to lunch with a man like Luca? She settled on a simple sundress. Blue, Derek had hated it, and minimal makeup to cover the fading bruise on her cheek. He arrived exactly at 1, looking devastating in dark jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No suit today, but somehow he still carried that air of command. "You look beautiful," he said, and the way his eyes traveled over her made her feel it. The restaurant was small, intimate, tucked away on a side street she'd never noticed before. The owner greeted Luca by name and showed them to a private table in the back. "Regular spot?" Sophia asked. "I come here when I want privacy. Sal knows how to be discreet." He waited until she'd settled in her chair before taking his own. "How are you feeling today?" "Better. Good, actually." She touched her lips self-consciously. "Your men were very professional last night. One of them changed my locks while I was sleeping." "Good." He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world to have someone's locks changed in the middle of the night. They ordered, and conversation flowed easily. He asked about her work. She was a graphic designer, freelance now that Derek had sabotaged her last full-time position by showing up drunk to the office Christmas party. He told her about growing up in the city, about his mother who'd passed 5 years ago, about his younger sister who was studying architecture in Milan. "Your turn," he said over wine. "Why did you marry him?" Sophia considered the question. "I thought I loved him, and I thought he loved me. He was charming at first, attentive. By the time I saw who he really was, I was already convinced I could help him change." She laughed softly. "Stupid, right?" "Not stupid. Hopeful. There's a difference." Luca reached across the table, his fingers finding hers. "But you can't love someone into being better, Sophia. They have to want it for themselves." "Voice of experience?" "Something like that." His expression darkened briefly. "I was married once, long time ago. She wanted me to be someone I couldn't be, and I wanted her to accept someone she couldn't love. We made each other miserable for 3 years before admitting defeat." "Any regrets?" "Only that I wasted her time." He squeezed her hand gently. "But I learned something important. When you meet the right person, you don't have to pretend to be someone else." The right person? Was he saying? Sophia's heart stuttered. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then looked at her with an expression that made her pulse quicken. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay." "Derek's father, Anthony Castellano. Did he ever threaten you?" The question caught her off guard. Not directly, but he made it clear he thought I was the problem in the marriage. Gold digger, he called me. Said I was trying to take Derek for everything he had. The irony still burned. This from a man whose son spent my entire savings account. Luca's jaw clenched. Did Derek ever discuss his father's business with you? Sometimes. Why? Because Anthony Castellano is currently in a meeting with some very serious people, trying to explain why his dealerships have been failing inspection after inspection this week. Turns out there are some significant issues with his business practices. Safety violations, worker complaints that were ignored, some creative accounting that the IRS might find interesting. Sophia stared at him. Luca, did you... I made some calls. His voice was calm, matter of fact. Asked some questions. Turns out when you start looking closely at the Castellano businesses, a lot of interesting things come to light. But how did you... I have resources, Sophia, and I use them to protect the people I care about. The people he cared about. They'd known each other less than 24 hours, but the way he looked at her made time feel irrelevant. That's not all, he continued. Derek's brothers had their contractor licenses suspended this morning, pending investigation into some projects that weren't exactly up to code, and Derek himself? Luca smiled, but there was no warmth in it. His membership at 3 different casinos has been revoked, permanently. Sophia's head was spinning. You did all that in one night? I did what was necessary. He leaned forward. Men like Derek, like his father, they think they're untouchable because no one has ever made them face consequences. They hurt people because they can. But everyone has vulnerabilities, Sophia. Everyone has something they can't afford to lose. She should be frightened. This was proof of exactly how powerful, how dangerous Luca Moretti really was. Instead, all she felt was a fierce satisfaction, and something warmer, deeper. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? Because when I saw your face last night, when I heard fear in your voice, he stopped, collected himself. Because some things are worth going to war over. And you, Sophia Walsh, are worth going to war over. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. Derek's number somehow unblocked. She declined the call, but it rang again immediately. Answer it, Luca said. Put it on speaker. She did, hands shaking slightly. Sophia! Derek's voice was frantic, desperate. Sophia, you have to help me. You have to tell them it was a mistake, that you lied. Tell who what? Her voice was ice. My dad. He's losing everything. The dealerships are being shut down. Marco and Tony lost their licenses. Someone's been making calls, spreading lies. Lies. She looked at Luca, who was watching her with calm intensity. Everything that's happening to your family right now, is any of it actually lies, Derek? Silence on the other end. Did your father bribe inspectors? Did your brothers cut corners on those apartment buildings? Did you forge my signature on those loan applications? Her voice was getting stronger with every question. Are any of the things happening to you actually lies? Or are they just consequences? You don't understand. No, Derek. I understand perfectly. For the first time in 3 years, I understand everything. She took a deep breath. Don't call me again. Don't come to my apartment. Don't contact me at all. If you do, I'll file for a restraining order, and I'll make sure every single judge in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. You can't do this. She doesn't have to. Luca took the phone from her hand, his voice deadly calm. I'll do it for her. This is the only warning you'll get, Derek. Stay away from Sophia. Stay away from her work, her friends, her family. If I hear you've so much as driven past her building, what happened to your family's businesses will seem like a vacation compared to what comes next. Who the hell are you? Someone you should have thought twice about before putting your hands on his woman. He ended the call and set the phone down. You okay? His woman. The words echoed in her head, thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. I'm perfect. And she meant it. Though you might have just made things more complicated. Things were already complicated. He stood, came around to her side of the table and pulled her to her feet. "But I'm very good with complications." She looked up at him. This man who had walked into her life during her darkest moment and somehow made everything different. "I don't know what this is, Luca. I don't know what we're doing. We're giving you the life you deserve." His hands framed her face, careful of her bruises. "We're making sure no one ever hurts you again. And we're seeing where this goes, because I haven't stopped thinking about you for a single moment since last night. I haven't stopped thinking about you either." "Good." He kissed her forehead, tender and careful. "Now, there's somewhere I want to take you, if you trust me." "I do." The words came without hesitation. They drove north, leaving the city behind. Sophia watched the landscape change through the window, feeling like she was shedding an old skin with every mile. Luca's hand rested on her knee, solid and reassuring, occasionally squeezing gently as if to remind himself she was real. The house appeared as they crested a hill, stone and glass, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. "This is yours?" she asked as they pulled through the gates. "It's my retreat, where I go when the city gets too loud." He helped her out of the car. "I wanted you to see it." The interior was all warm wood and soft light, comfortable without being ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed an endless expanse of blue water. Sophia walked to the glass, mesmerized. "It's incredible." "I built it 5 years ago." He came to stand behind her, his arms loosely circling her waist. "After my mother died, I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere that was just mine." She leaned back against him, feeling his heartbeat against her spine. "Thank you for sharing it with me, Sophia." His voice was rough. "I need you to know something. My life, it's not simple. The things I do, the business I'm in, there are aspects of it you might not like, things that happen in shadows. I know who you are, Luca." She turned in his arms to face him. "At least I know the rumors. Some of them are true." He didn't look away. "I'm not a good man by most definitions. You were good to me. That's different." His hands tightened on her waist. "With you, I want to be better. I want to be the man you see when you look at me like that." "How am I looking at you?" "Like I'm not a monster." He brushed her hair back from her face. "Like maybe I'm worth something more than fear and respect." She reached up, traced the hard line of his jaw. "You saved me. How could I see you as anything but a hero?" "Heroes don't destroy families out of revenge." "No," she agreed. "But you didn't destroy them out of revenge. You held them accountable. There's a difference." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. "How are you so sure?" "Because if you were the monster you think you are, you wouldn't care what I thought." She went up on her toes, pressed her lips to his in a soft, careful kiss. "You wouldn't be worried about being good enough." He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, deepening the kiss with a hunger that made her knees weak. This wasn't the careful gentleness of last night. This was need and want and something darker, more possessive. His hands moved over her back, her waist, like he was memorizing the feel of her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were almost black. "Stay with me," he said. "Tonight. No pressure, no expectations. Just stay." "Okay." They spent the afternoon walking the beach, talking about everything and nothing. He told her stories about growing up in the city, about learning his father's business young, about the moment he'd decided to be something more than what people expected. She told him about her art, her dreams of opening her own studio someday, the life she'd always imagined before Derek had made her forget what she wanted. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Luca pulled her close and said, "I want to give you something. You've already given me so much. Not this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. "This house. I want it to be yours." Sophia stared at him. "Luca, I can't. Please, let me do this." His thumb brushed across her uninjured cheek. "I want to know you have somewhere safe. Somewhere that's completely yours, that no one can take away. Somewhere you can come whenever you need to remember who you are." Tears pricked her eyes. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because in one night, you've made me want things I thought I'd given up on." His voice was raw with honesty. "Because when I look at you, I see a future I didn't know I wanted. And because every man who ever hurt you deserves to watch you thrive while they fall apart." She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the press of her lips against his. Gratitude and desire, and the beginning of something that felt dangerously like love. They made dinner together in his kitchen, moving around each other with easy familiarity that shouldn't have been possible after such a short time. He was surprisingly good at cooking, and she told him so. "My mother's influence," he said with a smile. "She believed no man should be helpless in his own kitchen." "Sounds like a wise woman." "She would have liked you." He handed her a glass of wine. "She always said I needed someone who would see me, really see me, instead of just seeing what I could do for them." "And do I? See you?" He set down his own glass and pulled her close. "Yes. And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because now I have something to lose." They ate on the terrace as stars began to appear, and Sophia felt something inside her settle. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. She wasn't bracing for an argument or an accusation. She was just existing in this perfect moment with a man who looked at her like she was something precious. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your lawyer called. Derek's agreed to an uncontested divorce. No alimony, no property disputes. Papers should be final within 2 weeks." She showed Luca the message, and his smile was satisfied. "Thought he might see reason." "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal." He kissed her temple. "Just made it clear that fighting you would be significantly more expensive than letting you go, financially and otherwise." "Otherwise?" "Let's just say Anthony Castellano is very motivated to keep his remaining businesses operational, and that motivation extends to making sure his son doesn't cause me any problems. She should probably feel guilty about the destruction of Derek's family empire. She didn't. All she felt was free. "Dance with me," Luca said suddenly, standing and offering his hand. "There's no music. There's always music." He pulled her to her feet and into his arms, began swaying slowly. "You just have to listen." They moved together under the stars, and Sophia rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. This was crazy. This was impossible. This was everything she'd never dared to want. "I'm falling for you," she whispered. "I know it's too fast. I know it's insane. But I am." His arms tightened around her. "Not as fast as I've already fallen for you." She looked up at him, saw the truth written across his face. What happens now? Now? He cupped her face in his hands. "Now we take it one day at a time. You finish your divorce. You build your life the way you want it. And I stand beside you, making sure no one ever makes you feel small again." "Just beside me?" His smile was slow, devastating. "Maybe a little closer than beside." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When he lifted his head, his eyes were dark with desire, but also something softer. "Stay with me," he said again. "Not just tonight. I'm not asking you to move in or make any decisions. Just stay close enough that I can keep you safe, that I can wake up knowing you're okay. I'll stay." They stood there wrapped in each other as the night deepened around them, and Sophia felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. Tomorrow she would be officially free of Derek. Tomorrow she would start rebuilding everything he'd broken. But tonight, she was exactly where she needed to be. "Tell me something," Luca said softly. "When you walked out of that bar last night, what were you hoping for?" "To just get home safely." She traced patterns on his chest. To survive one more day. And now? She thought about the question, about how much had changed in such a short time. Now I want to live. Really live. I want to open my studio. I want to wake up without being afraid. She hesitated. What? Tell me. I want to see where this goes. She looked up at him. With you. I want to know what it's like to be with someone who makes me feel powerful instead of powerless. You were always powerful, Sophia. He kissed her forehead. You just needed someone to remind you. They went inside as the temperature dropped, and Luca showed her to a guest room that was larger than her entire apartment. If you need anything, stay. The word came out before she could second-guess it. I don't want to be alone tonight. His eyes darkened with hunger and something fiercer. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He closed the door behind them, and when he kissed her this time, there was no hesitation. His hands learned the shape of her, reverent and claiming at once. She helped him out of his shirt, ran her hands over warm skin and hard muscle, felt him shudder at her touch. Sophia, he breathed against her lips. If we do this, then we do this. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not afraid. Not anymore. You should be. But he was already backing her toward the bed. I don't share. Once you're mine, you're mine. Then I'm yours. The words were a beginning, a promise, a dare. And as Luca lowered her to the bed, his mouth finding hers again, Sophia knew she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. But she didn't want to. For the first time in years, she was choosing something for herself. Choosing pleasure over pain, desire over duty, a dangerous man who made her feel safe over a safe man who'd made her feel in danger. The night stretched ahead of them, full of discovery and heat and tenderness. He was careful with her injuries, fierce with his claiming, and by the time exhaustion finally pulled them under, Sophia was completely his. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Luca's arm heavy across her waist. He was already awake, watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. Morning, she whispered. Morning, beautiful. He pulled her closer. Sleep well? Better than I have in years. Good. He pressed a kiss to her bare shoulder. Because I'm planning to make that a habit. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, her lawyer, confirming that Derek had signed the papers. 2 weeks until she was officially free. 2 weeks that suddenly felt like nothing because she was already free in every way that mattered. It's done, she told Luca. He signed. Then I suppose congratulations are in order. He rolled over, pinning her beneath him with a wicked smile. How should we celebrate? She laughed, pulling him down for a kiss. I have a few ideas. Later, much later, they had breakfast on the terrace. Luca's phone kept buzzing, but he ignored it in favor of stealing bites of her toast and making her laugh with stories about his sister's latest architectural disaster. I should probably deal with that, he finally admitted when the phone rang for the 5th time. Go ahead, I'll clean up. She carried dishes into the kitchen and was loading the dishwasher when she heard his voice from the other room, low and dangerous. I don't care what he's offering. The answer is no. A pause. Because he put his hands on someone I care about, and that's not something I forgive. Another pause. Then he should have thought of that before he became a problem. Sophia dried her hands and went to find him. He was standing by the windows, tension in every line of his body. Everything okay? He turned, saw her, and visibly relaxed. Anthony Castellano wants to meet, wants to apologize, make things right. Are you going to? Meet with him? Yes. Accept his apology? He shook his head. Some things can't be fixed with words, Sophia. He raised a man who thought it was acceptable to hit his wife. He created a business empire built on cutting corners and exploiting workers. An apology doesn't undo that. So what will you do? I'm going to make sure he understands that you're under my protection now, that anyone who hurts you answers to me. He crossed to her, pulled her close. And then I'm going to come home to you and forget they exist. Home to you. The words wrapped around her heart. Can I come with you? He pulled back to look at her. To the meeting? I want to see him. I want him to see me, with you, happy, completely over his son. She lifted her chin. I want him to know I won. Luca's smile was slow and proud. You're sure? Completely. The meeting was set for that afternoon at a restaurant downtown, neutral ground, public enough to be safe. Sophia dressed carefully, choosing a white dress that made her feel strong, powerful. Luca couldn't stop looking at her. You're stunning, he said as they walked to the car. And you're going to destroy him without saying a word. Anthony Castellano was already seated when they arrived, flanked by Derek and his two brothers. They all stood when Luca approached, and Sophia felt a savage satisfaction at the fear in Derek's eyes when he saw her on Luca's arm. Mr. Moretti, Anthony extended his hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Luca ignored the offered handshake, pulling out Sophia's chair first. Only after she was seated did he take his own seat, and even then he didn't acknowledge Anthony's greeting. You have 5 minutes, Luca said. Use them well. Anthony's face reddened, but he swallowed his pride. I wanted to apologize. For my son's behavior, for any harm that came to Sophia. It was unacceptable. It was, Luca agreed. Continue. We're prepared to offer a substantial settlement. Full alimony, division of assets weighted in her favor. No, Luca's voice was flat. I'm sorry? Sophia doesn't want your money. The divorce is uncontested. No alimony, no assets. She's walking away clean. Anthony looked confused. Then what do you want? Luca leaned forward, and Sophia felt the temperature in the room drop. I want you to understand something, Mr. Castellano. Your son put his hands on this woman. He terrorized her, stole from her, tried to destroy her. And you raised him to think that was acceptable. You built a business that exploits people, and then act surprised when your son treats his wife the same way. Now wait just a minute. I'm not finished. Luca's voice could have cut glass. You're here because you want me to back off. Because your businesses are failing, and your sons are unemployed, and you finally understand that actions have consequences. But I'm not here to negotiate with you. Then why did you agree to meet? So you could see her. Luca took Sophia's hand, raised it to his lips without breaking eye contact with Anthony. So you could understand that she's not alone anymore, that she has someone who will protect her, someone who won't let men like your son hurt her ever again. Derek made a sound of protest, but a look from his father silenced him. I don't want your apology, Sophia said, finding her voice. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from any of you, except to never see you again. Sign the divorce papers, finalize everything, and then stay out of my life. And if we don't? Derek's voice was sullen, childish. Luca smiled, and it was terrifying. Then I'll take everything else your family has left. Your father's last 2 dealerships, your brother's reputations, your mother's country club membership. He paused. And I'll make sure every person in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are, Derek. Every woman you might date, every job you might apply for, every friend you might make, they'll all know you're the kind of coward who hits women. The silence that followed was absolute. So, here's what's going to happen, Luca continued. You're going to finalize the divorce. You're going to leave Sophia alone. No calls, no texts, no driving past her apartment. You're going to pretend she doesn't exist. And in return, I won't finish destroying your family. Do we have an understanding? Anthony nodded slowly. We have an understanding. Good. Luca stood, helping Sophia to her feet. Then we're done here. They walked out together, Luca's hand firm on her lower back. Sophia didn't look back. She didn't need to. That chapter of her life was closed. Outside, Luca pulled her into his arms. "How do you feel?" "Free." She laughed, the sound bright and unrestrained. "God, Luca, I feel completely free." "Good." He kissed her, right there on the sidewalk, claiming her mouth in a way that left no doubt about who she belonged to. "Because you are. You're free, you're safe, and you're mine." "Yours," she agreed. 2 weeks later, the divorce was final. Sophia stood in the courthouse with Luca beside her, watching as the judge's signature made her officially single again. No fanfare, no drama, just a quiet ending to a painful chapter. "Come with me," Luca said as they left the building. "I have something to show you." He drove her downtown to a corner building she'd always admired, all windows and exposed brick, beautiful in its industrial simplicity. He parked and led her to the door, pulled out a key. "What is this?" she asked. "Your studio." He pushed open the door, revealing a wide-open space with perfect light. "I know you said you wanted to open your own place someday, so I'm making that someday now." Sophia walked into the space, turning slowly to take it all in. It was perfect. More than perfect, it was exactly what she'd dreamed of. "Luca, I can't—" "Yes, you can." He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "You're talented, Sophia. You deserve a space where you can create, where you can build the business you've always wanted. Let me give you this. You've given me so much already. I want to give you everything." He turned her to face him. "I want to give you a life where you never have to be afraid again, where you wake up excited about the day instead of dreading it, where you know beyond any doubt that you're valued and protected and loved." Loved. The word hung between them, huge and terrifying and wonderful. "Say it again," she whispered. "I love you, Sophia Walsh." He cupped her face in his hands. "I've loved you since the moment I saw you standing in that rain, refusing to give up even when you had every reason to. I love your strength and your vulnerability, and the way you make me want to be better. I love you, and I'm done pretending I don't." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I love you, too. It's crazy, and too fast, and I don't care. I love you, Luca Moretti." He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When he pulled back, he was smiling. "Marry me." Sophia's heart stopped. "What?" "Marry me." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, beautiful and unique. "I know it's soon. I know we're still figuring this out, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Marry me, Sophia. Be my wife, my partner, my everything." She looked at the ring, then at him, this man who had saved her and claimed her and made her believe in herself again. This man who looked at her like she was precious. This man who had destroyed her enemies and then given her the tools to build her own empire. Yes. His smile was brighter than the sun. Yes? Yes, Luca. I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything with Luca was perfect in a way that should have been impossible, but somehow wasn't. "I promise you," he said, his forehead resting against hers, "that I will spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never regret this. Making sure you know how loved you are. Making sure no one ever hurts you again." "I know." She kissed him softly. "I already know." 6 months later, Sophia stood in her studio, her thriving, successful studio, and looked at the invitation in her hands. Tomorrow, she would marry Luca Moretti in a small ceremony at the house on the cliff, surrounded by the people they loved. Tomorrow, she would officially become his wife. But today, she had one last delivery to make. She drove to the Castellano dealership, the only one Anthony had managed to save, and walked into the showroom. Derek was there, looking older and tired, helping a customer. He saw her and went pale. Sophia walked up to him, placed an envelope on the counter between them. "What's this?" he asked. "An invitation." She smiled. "To my wedding. I wanted you to know that I'm happy. That I found someone who treats me the way I deserved to be treated all along. Someone who makes me feel safe and cherished and loved." Derek's jaw tightened. "You're marrying him." "I am. Tomorrow, actually." She turned the ring on her finger, watching it catch the light. "I wanted you to know that you didn't break me, Derek. You tried, but I'm stronger now than I ever was with you. I have a successful business, a beautiful life, and a man who would burn down the world for me." "That's not love, Sophia. That's obsession." She leaned forward. "No. Love is what Luca and I have. What you and I had was you trying to control me, and me allowing it because I didn't know better. But I do now." She straightened, picked up the invitation, tore it in half. "Actually, don't come to the wedding. I don't want you there. I just wanted you to know that I won, that every time you tried to make me small, you were actually teaching me how to be strong. So, thank you, Derek. Thank you for being exactly awful enough to make me realize I deserved better." She walked out without looking back, and this time there was no rain, no fear, no wondering what would happen next. There was just sunshine and possibility and the absolute certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be. That night, she lay in Luca's arms in their bed. She'd moved into his house by the sea 3 months ago and watched the moonlight play across the water. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, reading her silence. "Not even a little." She turned to face him. "I was just thinking about how different my life is now. How different I am." "You're not different," he said, kissing her forehead. "You're just finally free to be who you always were." "And who's that?" "Strong, talented, beautiful. Mine." He pulled her closer. "Tomorrow I get to stand in front of everyone and tell them what I already know, that you're the best thing that ever happened to me." "I love you," she whispered. "I love you more." He kissed her, slow and deep. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day." The wedding was small and perfect. Sophia wore ivory lace and carried wildflowers. Luca wore a dark suit and looked at her like she was the only person in the world. They exchanged vows on the terrace overlooking the ocean, promising love and protection and partnership. When the officiant said Luca could kiss his bride, he took his time about it, making everyone laugh and cheer. And when he finally lifted his head, his eyes were bright with emotion. "Hello, Mrs. Moretti," he whispered. "Hello, husband," she whispered back. The reception was laughter and dancing and joy. Luca's sister flew in from Milan and immediately loved Sophia. Friends and family toasted the happy couple. And through it all, Luca never let go of Sophia's hand, as if she might disappear if he did. As the sun set on their wedding day, they stood together watching the waves, and Sophia thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Bruised and afraid, and convinced she had nothing left to lose. She thought about the man who'd appeared in the rain, like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known she was praying. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me. For saving me." She turned to face him. "For loving me." "Sophia." He took her face in his hands. "You saved yourself. You were the one who filed for divorce. You were the one who walked away. You were the one who refused to let him break you. All I did was make sure he couldn't hurt you while you were putting yourself back together. You did more than that. Maybe." He smiled. "But only because you were worth it. Because the moment I saw you, I knew this is the woman who's going to change my life. This is the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life protecting and cherishing and loving. This is my woman." "Your woman," she agreed, going up on her toes to kiss him. "Forever." "Forever," he echoed, pulling her close. "And I promise you, Sophia Moretti, that every single day of forever is going to be exactly what you deserve." And as they stood there, wrapped in each other while the sun painted the sky in shades of fire, Sophia knew He was right. She had survived the storm. She had found her safe harbor. And now, with Luca beside her, she was finally, completely home. This was her happy ending. But more than that, it was her new beginning. A life built on love and trust, and the absolute certainty that she would never be small, or scared or hurt again. Because she had herself, she had her strength, and she had a man who looked at her like she was everything. "Tell me who hit you," he'd ask that night in the rain. And by sunset, her ex's entire family had lost everything. But Sophia? Sophia had gained the whole world.